Before we start, I need a favor. Let me know in the comments what's been done right or wrong. This also helps me create better content for you all, and check out our Creepy Tales playlist. And now we begin. Chapter 1. The Capture. He almost let it go. That was the part that kept crawling back into Officer Greg Halter's mind long after the event, waking him up at night, burning behind his eyelids while his wife talked about dinner or the weather. If he'd been 5 minutes later, if he hadn't taken that trail, if he'd looked away when he heard the rustling in the trees, she'd be gone. He was hiking alone that morning, off duty, weapon holstered just out of habit. It was supposed to be a breather, clear his head, stretch his legs. But the scream changed everything. Not loud. Not movie scene loud. Just this sharp, stifled thing, cut off halfway through like a rabbit caught in a snare. He drew his weapon before he even knew what he was aiming for. What he found looked like a misunderstanding at first, just a park ranger in uniform, khaki and green, kneeling over a woman. She wasn't screaming anymore. Duct tape wrapped around her head. Her legs flailed weakly as she thrashed in the dirt. The ranger stood slow, hands half raised, eyes calm. "Sir, this isn't what it looks like." That's when Halter noticed the blood on the woman's wrist, the abrasion on her temple, the fresh splintering around the nearby cabin door. He didn't wait. Halter tackled him hard, the two of them crashing through brittle underbrush and pine needles. The ranger didn't fight at first, just stared up at him, breathing heavy, pupils wide and hollow. She sobbed something muffled behind them. Halter bound the ranger's wrists with nylon paracord from his own gear and forced him back to the trailhead station, an old ranger shack with a single busted radio and one chair bolted to the floor. The woman couldn't stop shaking. She was maybe 25, and from the look of her sunburn and ragged voice, she'd been tied up for at least a day. "He took me yesterday," she whispered. "Said I was his now." Halter called it in. Backup was coming. Then he looked back at the ranger, still eerily quiet. And that's when he saw it. The ranger shifted, slumping back, and his uniform shirt, ripped in the struggle, opened just enough to reveal something inked onto his chest. Halter stepped closer, squinting. It was a crucifix. Not small. Not decorative. It spanned the ranger's entire torso, from collarbone to stomach. The vertical beam stretched long and crooked. The horizontal was etched wide from shoulder to shoulder, barbed at the ends like thorns. The ink was old, dark, almost bruised into the flesh, like it had been carved and healed over. Not a symbol of faith. More like a warning. Halter felt his skin tighten. The ranger slowly raised his head and smiled, mouth twitching into something too wide, too hungry. "She screamed just like her boyfriend did," he whispered. "Only difference is, he didn't make it through the night." Chapter 2. Lust and Envy. "She wasn't supposed to be his," the ranger murmured, head tilted like he was studying a painting no one else could see. Officer Halter didn't respond. He just stood by the bolted chair, one hand hovering near his sidearm, the other gripping the receiver of the busted ranger station radio, clicking uselessly every few seconds, just in case dispatch suddenly worked again. The woman sat in the corner now, covered in a donated blanket from the back of Halter's truck, her eyes wide and unfocused. The ranger looked at her, not like someone who'd been caught in a crime, but like someone watching a funeral procession. Slow, reverent, obsessed. "I saw them first," he continued, almost dreamlike. "They hiked in 4 days ago. Slept near the ridge. She wore that red shirt the first night, it glowed like a fire through the trees. He held her like she was precious. Like she belonged." Halter stepped forward. "Where is he?" The ranger blinked. She cried his name for hours. Thought he was coming. He wasn't. That didn't answer the question. But the way the ranger smiled when he said it, that was the answer. He didn't want to say what happened. He wanted to remember it. Halter could see it in the way his lips parted slightly as he looked at the woman again, like a starving man watching a roast pulled from the oven. He had shoulders like a boulder. "Cocky bastard," the ranger muttered. I thought, no way he loves her. She was laughing too loud for a girl like her. Too comfortable. They always outgrow guys like that, don't they? Guys who get too used to being the biggest thing in the room. Halter felt a twitch in his jaw. The ranger went on. He saw me, you know. First night. I was just watching. He laughed. Said, don't get lost out there, Ranger. Real charming. She laughed too. But when she looked at me. The room went quiet. Halter stared at him, the woman trembling harder in the corner. I could have taken her right then, the ranger whispered. But that wouldn't be love. That would be hunger. He leaned forward in the chair, eyes dark, alive, sick. She needed to see what it's like without him. She needed to see me. Not as a ranger. Not as a man. But as the rightful one. Halter slammed the back of the chair with his boot, sending a jolt through the ranger's body. Where is the boyfriend? The ranger laughed again, soft and secret. He was jealous too, you know. He saw it. Saw how she looked at me. The thing is, you can't envy what's already yours. The radio crackled once, then went silent again. Outside, the trees stood still. Too still. Chapter 3. Sloth. The woman hadn't spoken since the ranger mentioned her boyfriend. She'd shrunk into herself, silent now except for the rhythmic clench of her fingers against the blanket. Pull, release, like a metronome counting down to a breakdown. Officer Halter kept one hand resting on his holster. The ranger hadn't moved since the last outburst. He just breathed, slow and shallow, eyes vacant now. A strange calm was settling over him again, but not the kind that brought peace. No, it was laziness. A stillness that didn't come from meditation or patience, but from apathy. Halter crouched beside him. You took her. You hurt her. You said you killed her boyfriend. But when? How? The ranger blinked, head lolling back against the chair. I don't remember. Don't lie to me. I'm not, he said, voice drifting like smoke. I didn't think it'd matter. Time doesn't feel the same out here. His tone was chilling, not because of what he said, but because he meant it. There was no remorse, no panic, no scramble to save himself, just a slow dripping disinterest in everything except his own strange fixation. She screamed all night, he murmured, and I didn't even move. Not once. Just sat outside that shack and let it happen. Like music. Like the rain. Ever fall asleep to that sound, officer? Halter stood up fast, pacing once, then stopping. You didn't even untie her? I watched her twist around in the dark, the ranger said. She kept calling out. Asking for him. Sometimes for God. One time for me. I didn't answer. Not because I wanted her to suffer, but because... He looked up slowly. I just didn't care. The woman made a low noise in her throat. Halter shot a glance over. She was staring at the ranger now with pure, frozen terror, like she was realizing something deeper. Something worse than just being kidnapped. She'd begged him to help her. He was there. And he did nothing. She said she couldn't breathe at one point, the ranger added absently. Said her arms were going numb. I figured if it was that bad, she'd pass out and stop making noise. Jesus, Halter muttered. The ranger finally turned to him, the lazy mask cracking just enough to let something dark peek through. Pain's not a crisis, he said. It's a process. People think they need to act, to fix it. But the land doesn't fix things. The land waits. I was just waiting. That's all. Halter took a step back. He wasn't dealing with a man. Not anymore. He was dealing with something that could watch another human beg for help, and feel nothing. Something that had let the boyfriend die in the dark, and listened as the woman screamed herself hoarse, and thought, it's not my problem. Something that didn't act cruel. Just didn't act at all. Chapter 4, Wrath. It happened fast. Too fast for Halter to stop it. The woman had tried to speak, her voice finally rising into something more than a whisper. A name, maybe. Her boyfriend's name. Or a plea. And that was when the ranger's demeanor changed. His neck twitched. His fingers curled against the chair's arm like claws. His jaw set into a grin so forced it looked like it might split the skin. Then, without warning, he roared, "Shut up!" The woman collapsed into sobs. Halter had his gun drawn in a second, heart hammering against his ribs. But the ranger didn't lunge. He didn't fight. Not physically. Instead, he stared at the floor, chest heaving, shoulders tight. The calm was gone. The mask shattered. What was left was fury, old, coiled, and rotting behind his ribs for years. She wouldn't stop crying, he said. No one asked him anything. No one spoke. But he kept going, voice low and crackling, like a flame eating its own smoke. He kept calling her baby. Like she was a child. Like she couldn't choose. I offered her something better. I gave her truth. But he just kept getting in the way. He looked up, eyes glassy, twitching. He tried to fight me. Said I was sick. Said I needed help. What happened? Halter asked slowly. What did you do? The ranger's nostrils flared. His lip curled like a dog's. I showed him what help looks like. He didn't blink as he said it. I dragged him out past the dry creek bed. There's a hollow out there, under the roots. No one goes that far west. They say it's bad for hiking. I say it's perfect for burying. So you did kill him. The ranger didn't answer right away. He just tilted his head again, like the admission bored him. I snapped his neck before he even hit the ground. That's what he gets. For making her soft. For laughing at me. For mocking what I am. What are you? Halter asked, almost too quietly. The ranger smiled again, but this time it was dead-eyed. I'm wrath. I'm the answer to laughter. Then, almost in afterthought, I won't tell you where the body is. Silence. I want her to keep wondering, he added. Even after she's long gone. Halter took 2 fast steps toward him, fists clenched. The woman whimpered behind him. The air in the room had thickened, like the shack was suddenly pressing in, sealing the heat and tension inside. And still, the ranger sat there, breathing through his teeth. I see you want to hit me, he said, amused. Good. Rage feels honest, doesn't it? That's how I know we're the same. Halter didn't hit him. But it took everything he had not to. Because the man tied to that chair hadn't just done something monstrous. He was enjoying the memory of it. And somewhere, in the bones of the forest, a young man's body was rotting under the roots. Nameless, faceless, lost. Chapter 5. Greed. You think that's the worst of it? The ranger asked, voice hushed and giddy, like he was sharing a secret with a child. You think it ends with him? Halter stayed silent. The woman had retreated fully into the corner now, face in her hands, rocking slightly. Her world had already collapsed. Halter's was just beginning to tilt. The ranger leaned forward, testing the ropes again, not with urgency, but like he was petting them, appreciating them. He was smiling. That same awful smile, like he knew things no man should. They all thought they were the first, he said. Every one of them. The hikers, the campers, the little couples with big plans. The loners with journals and granola bars. They walk into my park like it's a theme trail. A selfie opportunity. He looked up at Halter again, and his voice dropped to something reverent. But they belong to me. What are you talking about? Halter asked. He kept his tone level, measured, though his fingers were twitching at his side. My collection, the ranger said. I don't just bury them. I preserve them. You think I dragged that boyfriend into the woods because of some crime of passion? You think she was just an obsession? He chuckled, shaking his head. I've been doing this for years. And they're all still with me. Halter stepped closer, one slow step at a time. Who's with you? The ranger's eyes glazed over, nostalgic. Their bones. Their breath. The pressure of their fear. I keep it all. I store it in the hollows, tuck it under fallen trees. Stuff it in abandoned dens. You'd be amazed what the forest lets you keep if you learn how to ask. You're saying there are more. There are dozens, he whispered. And they're all mine. Hikers go missing all the time. Nothing makes headlines unless it's a child or a pretty girl. But backpackers? Van campers? Lone travelers? They vanish and get written off as accident. Cold. Lost. Wildlife. He leaned back, the ropes creaking slightly under his shoulders. But I know where they are. I know every skull, every ribcage, every tiny, perfect vertebrae. The room felt colder. I own their souls, the ranger added, eyes gleaming. They can't leave. They whisper to me now. In the wind. In the trees. Sometimes they ask for peace. He smiled again. I tell them no. Halter stared at him, a sick weight forming behind his heart. This wasn't about one girl, one boyfriend. This was ritual. This was inventory. Why? Halter asked hoarse. The ranger sighed like the question bored him. Because the world takes from me. Always has. So I took something back. Not money. Not power. Just what's mine. He rolled his shoulders, testing the ropes again. They live forever out there, you know. In pieces. But they live. And that's more than they had before they met me. He paused. You'll see, officer. I'll show you where they are. All of them. But only if you ask the right way. The wind outside picked up, scratching the walls. And for the first time, Halter wondered if this man, this thing, really had been walking these trails alone. Or if his collection had started whispering back. Chapter 6. Pride. The ranger began to hum. It wasn't a tune Halter recognized. No words. Just this low, droning sound that vibrated in the back of his throat like an engine idling. The kind of sound that didn't belong in a room with walls. The woman flinched at it, huddling deeper into the corner, while Halter stepped between them and raised his voice. That's enough. Shut your mouth. But the ranger only hummed louder, and then began to speak over it, voice rising, shifting from a whisper to a sermon. They all walk my land and never look up. They thank their GPS. They follow their trail markers. They think the world belongs to them. But it doesn't. It belongs to me. He spat the last word with conviction, and then he laughed, a full-body laugh, shoulders shaking against the restraints, chest rising with something more than breath. Halter took a step forward, gun still holstered but his hand twitching toward it. You're not making sense. I'm not supposed to, the ranger hissed. Not to you. Not yet. Then, he tilted his head back and shouted at the ceiling. I am the shepherd of this land. The shack trembled with the suddenness of it. A few leaves rustled against the window, caught in an unexpected gust of wind. Halter reached for the radio again, still no signal. The line was dead. Or blocked. Or ignored. I guard them all, the ranger continued. The bones, the roots, the wind, the rot. I speak to what grows in shadow. I bless what is buried. You're insane, Halter said, but his voice came out quieter than intended. The ranger grinned at him again, teeth too white, eyes too bright. No, he said. I'm chosen. I've performed miracles. I've never been caught. I've never been punished. I've walked through wildfire and come out without a burn. I've crossed frozen lakes barefoot. You think that's luck? He pointed his chin at the woman. She was supposed to be the next. A bride for the land. A witness to my transformation. But now, he snarled. Now you've made a mess of it. His breath grew ragged. The smile vanished. I am the beginning of the new covenant, he growled. My blood is in the trees. My seed is in the soil. My name isn't worth a damn, Halter cut in. The ranger's eyes snapped open wide. That twitch returned to his neck. You don't know what I am, he said. I know what you're not, Halter said. You're not a god. You're not even a man. You're a coward who can't stand being ignored. For a moment, silence. Then the ranger leaned forward, slowly, deliberately, and the ropes binding his wrists snapped. Like thread. Like dry grass. He stood. Just stood. The chair screeched back against the floor. Halter pulled his gun but didn't get to aim. The ranger moved too fast, shoulder into his chest, hand to his neck, and blackness. Dark, hot blackness. When Halter came to, the ranger was gone. So was the woman. Only the sound of sirens filtered in now, somewhere close. Real ones. On-duty officers. Guns. Radios. Reinforcements. But Halter already knew. They were too late. Chapter 7. The Revelation. They found him just before sunrise. Officer Halter was sprawled on the floor of the ranger station, wrists bruised, throat raw, one eye swollen nearly shut. The backup team, 2 cruisers and AK-9 unit, arrived expecting a kidnapping suspect in custody. Instead, they found only the wreckage of the struggle and the frantic, half-coherent ramblings of a cop who just looked something inhuman in the face. The ranger was gone. So was the woman. No blood. No tracks. Not even her torn blanket. Just a broken chair, shattered rope, and a crucifix burned into Halter's memory like a scar. He kept mumbling it over and over as they loaded him onto the stretcher, shoulder to stomach. Shoulder to stomach. By mid-morning, the park was crawling with search teams, dogs, thermal drones, and volunteers. They combed the ridge, searched the creek beds, sent divers to the deeper pools. But the ranger might as well have melted into the trees. Then a cadaver dog started barking near the northwest edge, where the trail system turned to thorns and silence. That's where they found it. A tree, massive, old, limbs like twisted arms stretching out over the clearing. Beneath it, a depression in the earth marked by scraps of fabric and the white shine of bone. Not one skeleton. Not 2. But dozens. Rotted denim jackets. Retro hiking boot. Polaroid film. A Walkman. A cracked Motorola flip phone. Some of it had clearly been there for decades. And perched on the lowest limb above it all was a raven. It didn't fly away when approached. It just sat there, watching. Its feathers were damp with morning dew, but there was something off about its eyes, too knowing, too human. One officer swore it whispered something under its breath. Another said the air under that tree was colder than it should have been. They stopped counting bones after 32. And that was before the howling started. Not wolves. Not coyotes. Something bigger. Something wrong. The kind of howling that didn't echo, it hunted. It threaded through the pine needles and made grown men drop their gear and start to shake. Then the voice. "I'll start again." It wasn't loud. It was buried in the wind, carried through the branches. But they all heard it. And that's when movement started, shapes flickering between the trees on the far edge of the clearing. Shadows tall as elk, fast as deer, hunched and twitching. Not quite human. Not quite anything else. They slipped in and out of view too quickly to count. One officer said, "There's 6 of them." Another said, "No, he's making more." And somewhere deep in the woods, far past the boundary lines, past the reach of maps or cell towers or reason, something walked in a ranger's uniform, humming a tune no one should remember. His park. His rules. His sins.